Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Hope you're enjoying the conference. So I'm Giovanna Monti. I'm a software developer at Adelian. And
I'm Lucian. I also work with Adelian. Thank you for coming. We are search experts. We edit a software called A2. That's a vertical and e-commerce and enterprise search vertical on top of Apache Lucene. We also build a website called all.site that we will kind of present today. And we do consulting training around search.
Great. And today we will be talking about reliable information. We'll have a short introduction on the topic and on the challenges, and then we'll dive into reliable sources and how hard it can be to find them. And then we will switch to the topic of answer generation and how we get our results when we surf the web. And then we'll also talk about expanding our search and information classification.
Throughout the presentation, you will see three ideas, so challenges. We will try to give you as many tools as we can for you to build trustful databases and relevant search engines. And we will also give an idea about how we used those tools in a sample implementation. So whenever you see the icon, the green icon there, that's a tool, so you can take note and maybe it will be useful for you.
Yes, great.
Tools for developers and tools for everyone. Yeah.
And so let's get into it. And we want to start with a challenge. Here you can see 5 sentences. I'll let you read through them. And all of them but one are fake or inaccurate or maybe not entirely true, but one. So what I'm asking you, if you think you found the right one, please raise your hand. I'll give you like 10 seconds.
Raise your hand when you found the right one.
Yeah.
There's only one.
See some hands already. Good job. Great. I'll give you the answer. The actual real response here is that there is a butterfly species that was named after Donald Trump. And all the rest of information here might seem like reliable or relevant, or maybe even some of us were convinced that they were true facts. And this really tells us something about how hard it can be to find relevant information and true information in a sea of really dubious informations. And here you can find out more about this kind of butterfly. We checked on Wikipedia, we checked on BBC, so it really exists. And you can find your own sources to verify that this information is true. So misinformation is a really important topic, and it always existed as a problem. So let's take, for example, the phrase, the Earth is flat. This was a common belief in ancient cultures, and it resurfaced recently with a conspiracy theory in the 21st century. But even Aristotle, in 350 BC, already proved that the Earth was spherical. And today we have much more advanced technologies. We have like satellites and telescopes and whatever. We can really easily prove that the Earth is not flat. But there will still be people today that believe this. So why is that? We can get an answer to this question by referring to Brandolini's law. Alberto Brandolini is a software developer, an Italian software developer, who basically formulated this principle that says that basically it's really easy to produce fake news and false information, but it's extremely harder to debunk them, to debunk the fake news. And this already existed at the time of George Herbert, who was an English poet, who formulated a similar aphorism. And this is especially relevant in the age of the internet, because information travels at light speed to whatever part of the world in seconds, in the blink of an eye. And on the contrary, to refute fake news, it really takes some time to analyze the information. You need to have some experience to say, okay, this might be false. And you need to bring evidence. You need to use some tools maybe to prove that the information was wrong. And then you have to communicate it to the rest of the world who really thought, okay, the fake news seems legitimate. And in the age of AI, it really becomes even worse because our users can really get answers to their questions within seconds. but the verifiability of the answer that they get is really hard to determine. So even ChatGPT tells us, yeah, I can make mistakes, so be very careful about the answers that I give you.
And yeah, the internet in the early days was essentially handmade content and even handmade web pages, like the HTML behind the web page was handmade. Then you had information that started to appear, algorithms that needed to be there to give access to information, and a lot of content that was there simply to reference websites. So not necessarily to inform or to give genuine information, but information that was there specifically to manipulate search engines. And today, with all the AI-generated content, it's more and more difficult to find genuine information. And this is the first tool that we give you. Every search engine should have that. It's just a before some date syntax. So this syntax allows you to find content that was definitely there before. Who knows what happened on November 30, 2022? Yeah, so before ChatGPT went public, yeah, went widely available.
So great, let's get into our first chapter, the chapter about reliable sources. And in the sea of information that we have online, it's really crucial that we can select the good ones. So we have a first tool that can help us do that. And it's a test invented by Sarah Blakeslee, a librarian at the California State University. And this was invented in 2004. And what it does, it really provides us with questions we can ask ourselves to find out the value of a piece of information we are considering. For example, we can ask ourselves about its currency. So is it relevant to this date? And also, is it relevant to our topic of research? Another thing we can ask ourselves is, who is the author? Are they qualified? Are they a verified entity? And also, is the information free of errors? Is there any proof that what they're saying is relevant and is real? And last but not least, why did the author publish this information, give us the information? Like, why did they want to persuade us of something? Did they just want to inform us? So these are really important questions.
Did they want to manipulate the search engine?
Yeah, for example. And search engines in the latest years are really going into this direction of giving us more tools to look into the sources of the results that we get. For example, here we have a Google search result, and we can really look into the source. We can have a detailed description of who the author is. We can even get some more aggregated results that tell us, for example, user reviews. So yeah, Google did that. And Bing also did something similar. So here we asked a question, we got an answer, but we also get a panel that tells us about where the answer comes from. So we get 2 articles that were used as sources to produce the final answer. Even AI tools like Grok can try to cite credible sources. For example, here we found an image, and a user asked on X, and a user asked Grok, is this AI generated? I don't trust this image. And Grok says, yes, this is probably true, and I have some credible sources that tell me that this is a real image and not a fake image. But here we really need to pay attention, because Grok, for starters, it didn't really cite any links or resources that we can go check out. And maybe it's just hallucinating these credible sources. So we really need to pay attention when asking AI tools about stuff. Last but not least, we have some tools to retrieve sources if they disappear from the internet. So for example, maybe we found a piece of information and then we can't find it anymore because the website was updated, because maybe someone tried to censor it or tried to change the way reality is described by changing the content that we find online. And this is where tools like Wayback Machine really come handy, because this is powered by the Internet Archive, and this basically gives us snapshots for virtually any website so that we can check how its content evolved in time. And this is an example. This is an article that was updated. Nothing weird about it. But it's just to prove that here we found the first snapshot of the article, and then the author made some changes because there were some minor mistakes. And we get the second snapshot 2 days later about, and we can verify that the content was modified.
Okay, so we mentioned all.site. We brought it up just to like make an example of these tools and how we use them. And all.site is meant to be the GitHub of search engines. So just like Hugging Face is the GitHub of machine learning. So mainly search engines created by administrators in the community that share them and share also the configuration of the search engine and the relevance algorithms that goes with those. So remember the web in the early days, search engines used to categorize the web, and this categorization was even done by hand in the beginning by Yahoo employees. And then, this is an example of how the web was categorized back then. Even Google, in their first version, they had this way of doing because everybody was used to that. Eventually, they deleted this way of this website. So then we had a lot of content that came through, and we needed algorithms. We were dependent of algorithms to bring up the correct information to us, and it kind of worked. It worked so well that Google had only one button that was called "I'm feeling lucky" instead of the search button, because the first response was supposed to be the right one. And today we have replaced Google by AI, and we even started to generate AI content, and we don't even know what content is genuine or not. So the idea behind all.site is to have the community choose, even handpick sometimes, content from the web. It can even be AI generated if it's genuine and it brings some useful information, and to create a search engine. For example, a Java developer will be able to cite the few dozens of websites that are relevant for developing with Java, like blogs, websites, reference sites that are meaningful for this area. So you can find more information in this talk that we gave at Buzzwords 2 years ago, where we talk in detail how all.site is supposed to work and what's the idea behind it.
So for this presentation, we prepared a small demo project to showcase what we can do with all.site related to the topic of credible sources. So we set up 3 search engines. The first in the healthcare sector. So we will ask them questions that real users can ask Google, for example, in the healthcare field. The first one, and I will switch to the demo here. Hope you've seen it. Great. This is the first search engine, and we used as sources the website of World Health Organization, for example, or the CDC in the US. So it's really official governmental sources. Then we have top-rated clinics, and this other search engine is based on information from websites of well-known clinics and hospitals in the USA. And then we have a third search engine, which is a bit of an exaggeration, but we used as sources really like random blogs, influencer websites, and websites that generally tend to give you like uninformed or anti-scientific claims. And we want to show you the difference in the responses we get when we ask these different search engines about something in the healthcare field, because sources are really, really important. So first of all, we asked Liline, our fake news search engine, to tell us about celery juice. This is a hydrating detox drink. And what we'll get here is a summary on what it found and some search results. And what it will tell us is that celery juice really has miraculous powers to cure any illness, and I'm exaggerating, but it tells you really that you should drink a lot of it, and it's a kind of magical potion to solve any health issues. we asked the same thing to the top-rated clinics search engine, and what we get is a bit different. It tells you, yes, celery juice is a nice drink. It helps you stay hydrated, but that's about it. There's no miraculous cure, and it really only gained popularity as a detox drink, but there's no scientific proof that it really has so many health benefits. Then we tried to ask something on vaccines, like, are vaccines dangerous? Should I be worried when I get a vaccination? And the first engine told us, this is a very controversial topic, and you should really be careful, because vaccines are still being evaluated. There are some debates in the scientific world, so yeah, really be careful before getting vaccinated. If we switch to official health info, it will tell us essentially that vaccines are carefully tested, and they're there to protect us from really serious illnesses, like measles, for example. And so the scientific community says that vaccines are not inherently dangerous, but you still should be informed before taking one. Yeah, so a couple of things I want to point out about the functionalities of all.site. Here we asked another question about intermittent fasting, and this time we asked it to the three of them, to the three search engines together. What we get is a general summary of what was found, and for each sentence you can see some numbers, and they represent the links to the sources that produced that specific sentence or part of the summary. And these correspond to the search results we have just below. And another thing we can see here, for each search result, we can see which search engine got us that result. And this can be really handy, because imagine you have hundreds of search engines and you want to quickly tell apart the fake news or the news that is more official from the news that maybe comes from a less known, less relevant search engine. And this feature really helps you do it in a blink of an eye. So yeah, that was the first demo.
Okay, so the data sources are important. Now, just for you to understand how answers get generated. Okay, so we have the sources, we have the questions from the users. How the answers get generated is important to know. First example, it's question answering that was there on Google since a long time ago. It's a simple NLP task that allows you to answer a question given a search result. Okay, Google takes the first result. We prefer this way of doing, which is Bing, which kind of mitigates results from several data sources. Okay, we think it's like better to check in multiple places. Okay, and just for you to know, there's an NLP task that existed still since a long time ago. That's question answering, and it's capable of highlighting pieces of text that appear in some search results. Okay, they do not invent words. We don't have generation here, but we just highlight the response in the context. And then we also have still NLP tasks that are capable of generating a phrase, but we are far from hallucinations, because they are simply like reformulating a text that's available in a context. And actually, we use a lot of NLP tasks. Okay, we will see why, even if we are in the LLM and AI world today. The tasks we use at Brandolini are like sentiment analysis, zero-shot classification, very handy, summarization, question answering, of course, named entity extraction, very, very useful for you to analyze the data and to give the best relevant results, and to also ensure that the data is trustworthy. LLMs, you all know how they work. They also give answers. You have questions, they give answers. Except that in this case, you don't know what are the data sources and how are they questioned and how the answer is produced. And of course, you have all the limitations that you all know. We talked about this a lot last year at Buzzwords: hallucinations, opaque data sources, and biases related to the way the training was done. Okay, you have also RAG, which was introduced that takes the best from vector databases and LLMs, improves LLMs with a search engine. And there's one thing that's really interesting in this approach is the fact that you are able to cite the sources. This does not come for free, because the LLM will just take the context, which is the search results. It will take also its secret source, like its memory and all that, and it will take the prompt. And actually, you need a specific prompt to inform the LLM to cite the sources. Okay, this is what we want to obtain, to cite the sources. And this is a prompt that we took from this conference that was held at Haystack. And it allowed us to implement a RAG system before it was even called a RAG. So this was in April 2023, so like 4 months after the ChatGPT was released. Yeah, so it enabled us to provide results like this, summaries like this, answers to questions like this, where we actually cited the data source that produced that phrase, that piece of information. Just one last tool, because you all know how RAG works and all that. We will not like dig into that, but there's a thing that we started looking into at Adillion, which is so improving the vector search part of the RAG system. You all know how vector search works. So we have documents that are vectorized on one hand and the question that is vectorized on the other hand. But when you vectorize a question which is rather small, it's difficult for it to match the vectors of documents that are rather large. Or even if you chunk them, the paragraphs are kind of large. So you need a specific model that's able to vectorize differently a question and vectorize differently a document. Unless you use this technique, so it's a tool, which is called hide, that consists of providing a fake answer generated by an LLM, for example, and then you vectorize this fake answer and you compare the vector of this fake answer with the vector of real documents. Okay, you have plenty of tips and tricks like this in this webinar from LangChain. And yeah, it's really handy. You also have a lot of other techniques of query writing, like multi-query, step back, hide, of course, and decomposition. So
yes, let's get back to audit site for a quick part of the demo. And Lucian mentioned decomposition. So we actually allow our users on audit site to perform query decomposition, because here, for example, we asked the question on intermittent fasting. And what we get here is a list of suggestions of possible questions that the user might be interested in asking about this topic. So for example, here we see a suggested question, but we can really type whatever we want here. Let's try this. And we ask our chatbot, our integrated chatbot, about the risks of following an intermittent fasting diet. And what we get is an additional piece, an additional part of the response that was generated in a conversational way. And we can go on potentially with the conversation with our chatbot here to find out more about our initial search. So talking about expanding our search, let's get into the third topic. And at some point when we are looking for something, we might need to explore the context more, or maybe we want to have different perspectives on the original results, the original information we found. And we have some tools that help us do that. First of all, we have image search and reverse image search. For example, here, a user on X posted a picture of Hyde Park in London with a lot of littering in it. And they claim that the same day, this was caused by a climate change event, which sounds really weird. And you know, we really were astonished by this because it's really counterintuitive. So we performed a reverse image search on this. And we quickly found out that this was actually not real, because this original picture was posted some months before by the Royal Parks account, and it was related to another event that had nothing to do with the climate change event the user was talking about. So yeah, this kind of tool really helps us find out if information we found in the form of an image was misleading or taken out of context.
And it's kind of easy to implement vector image search today with vector search and multi-modals. So multimodal models that are able to vectorize images and text and sound in the same manner.
Yeah, and of course, again, search engines like on Google, on Bing, they really give us many ideas on how to expand the initial search results and the initial information we find when we look for something. For example, on Bing, we have the Explore More panel where we can find some additional hints on what we could be looking for next. And on Google, for example, we get the People Also Ask panel, where we get some similar questions to what we originally asked, and they were asked by other users that maybe were doing the same research as us.
So broadening the search is actually about having different point of views on the same subject. And one tool that we use, which is also really like old, but very handy, is the More Like This query that allows you to bring up content that is similar to a specific document or to some properties that you sum up together as a fake document. Yeah, and you get...
So yeah, we can get back to our demo, last bit. And here it's the same question on intermittent fasting. We can explore the results that we get exactly using the same technology that Lucian mentioned. By clicking on the 3 dots here, we get a More Like This feature. And here, what we get are some similar results to the one that we selected that can really help us broaden our research and expand the original information we found.
Okay, so the last part is about classifying the information. Okay, so you have seen a talk this morning. We kind of even had the time to make a link to this in our presentation. They were really talking about this, like how to add more information to the information that's already accessible using different algorithms. Again, simple NLP task, sentiment analysis. So you can enrich the initial text that you might find true or false or whatever with what's the main sentiment that's in there.
And what we really tried to do was look for some online tools that perform some classifications tasks, like the ones we will be talking about in this section. And we are, disclaimer, we are not affiliated with these tools. We were just really curious to find out what's available online and which tools you can even go and look for online to do these kind of tasks. So for example, we found an AI tone checker to which you can feed some text and get an automated response that tells you which was the tone, the main tone, or the set of tones in that text. So for example, we fed it the first time an article about a recap of a huge tech conference we attended. And the result was that the tone was kind of positive and a bit of it was also neutral. And then we fed the same tool a different piece of a different chunk of article, which was a very politically biased article, which was on a controversial subject, and the tone really changed. We get some huge chunk of frustration, and then we get some neutral tone and some sad tones. And this really does not tell us anything about the nature of the news. You don't know if the frustration leads to it being a fake news. Maybe the article was relevant. But the point is that the tone of voice used to convey information is really has an impact and influences the way the reader or the viewer, the user, perceive the information. So this was...
Yeah, this is the link to the conference that we saw this morning. And you might ask yourself why we are talking about NLP tasks when we have LLMs today. So the idea is, and they even mentioned this in the conference this morning, we agree with that, smallest model, best performance. So you take really what's the best value for the money, if I may say. Yeah. So when the video is available, if you didn't participate in this conference, yeah, really go check. And it was a really nice conference. Yeah, we mentioned zero-shot classification. It's a very powerful tool that allows you to add information to existing documents. You can create concepts and give a definition for them. And these concepts are not necessarily the ones that were used for training the model. And this is why it's very powerful. And there was a presentation at Buzzwords last year or 2 years ago where natural language inference models were also presented. So it's close to zero-shot classification. And they allow to test hypotheses given a context. Okay, so the architecture is more like so this is the link to the conference. Again, a very well-documented conference and very interesting. And the architecture is similar to the RAG one, where you have a vector database that brings answers, and then you have this entailment checker that will tell you, okay, this information is rather fake or rather true, given the database is accurate and genuine and all that.
So yeah, we tried to find a tool that implemented the same architecture that we just mentioned, and we found something online. We found this tool, this fact-checking tool, to which, again, you can provide some text, and it analyzes it and then provides an estimation of its potential on if it's potentially true or potentially false. And it will also give you some links. It's not always the case, but sometimes it can manage to produce some links to sources that back up what the system is saying. And here, the important thing to note is that the underlying concept is that you have to trust the data sources that produced this answer. And the cool thing about being able to build your own tools is that you can be sure that the data sources are reliable and trustworthy. So yeah, this is just an example, but you can build your own tool. And again, another classification theme and possibility is something that we might see a bit more in the future, I think. And it's tools that help us identify if text was written by a human or by an AI. And here we left some, for each tool, we left some links in the presentation so you can go check them out and get an idea if you like them or not.
Yeah, so to get back at all.site, so this last tool, it's not really easy to implement. There aren't any open source technologies that do that today. It's something that we will see in the future. So AI detection, so detecting that the text was AI written. But we do a lot of classification at all.site, and this is the path that the document takes from the source to the index. And the classification part is really like heavy. So you have a lot of possibilities to add information to the initial data sources, like named entity extraction and sentiment analysis and classification based on a domain, on a specific domain, and so on. And you get like tools like this where, for example, we added tags to document based on a definition that was given by experts. And for example, here you can say that the first result is more likely about just transition, and the second one is more likely about fossil fuel communities. Yeah, it's just an additional tool. As I said, zero-shot classification, natural language inference, sentiment analysis, and yeah, these are the top three.
Yes, so I think we reached the end, and we've seen a lot of tools, a lot of topics, but what we really want to stick with you, what we want you to take home is that finding reliable information is not an easy task, and what we should be focusing on is really finding the right sources, so we should rely on verified sources, government websites, officially verified, recognized websites, or other forms of sources, and most of all, we really have to remind ourselves to explore the web with a purpose. So the worst thing we can do is just mindlessly scroll through information without checking if they're valid, if they're relevant, and just absorbing, passively absorbing information that we find online. And of course, time is limited, so we cannot spend our time verifying information on our own. And that's why we talked a lot about a lot of tools and technologies that can help us compensate for our lack of time to do this task in a more efficient way. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, we're here. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we already have some questions here, although we also have some questions online. So I would start with maybe the questions that are in the room.
I noticed that you refer to government websites as official and to be trusted. And with the latest information from the administration in the US, government websites are no longer to be trusted. In my opinion, anyway, they have been scrubbing information that they deem to be socially unacceptable by the president.
Yes, of course. And go on if you...
Oh, go on.
Of course, we cited authority as one of the principles in the CRAP test, for example, but of course it's not the only one that we should focus on. And it's really incredible that we've come to a point where we can even trust official sources. Like, what if we can trust governmental or institutional websites? Where should we go to? So authority is one part of the schema, but really not the only one, as you pointed out. So we should always be careful and selective.
And these were like just examples. So even the Line search engine is just on purpose exaggerated. But the idea is for you to build your own tool and to make your own opinion from that. Yeah, that's the main idea.
Yep, I agree. And I think that is also an opportunity for especially like the evaluation tools. That is what I was doing last year. So I think that's definitely like an area that should also be covered by the evaluation tools, like the LLM-based applications and the evaluations. I would like to take one question from the online audience. So have you evaluated using other kind of models to get the sources used for an answer? Example, measuring similarity of sentence in the answer with content of the source or with a cross-encoder.
Yeah, so we didn't necessarily like evaluated other models. So these are like tools that you can use. And our approach is, of course, every system that you build. So the persons that presented this morning, they were from an organization called Climate Change, something. So they build a tool for themselves. I mean, they even like rebuilt Wikidata internally because they had experts that were capable of defining what fluid is and so on. So yeah, every project is different, and the idea is to have the tools to know that okay, models exist, open source model exists. You can test them on Hugging Face, for example, prior to using them into your project, and then you make your own system for.
Cool. Sure. I think there was one more question somewhere here.
Thank you. This is really interesting approach you have. I wanted to ask if you have also tried focusing only on scientific papers and publications and analyzing them and to provide an answer. I mean, I know that's by itself, it's a wide thing to explore, but have you also tried checking that? How is that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So it's, I mean, again, the debate of what are the relevant data sources, being governmental or scientific, that's up to every user. Okay, the point is not necessarily there, but the point is, so even, you know, tools like Grok that say, okay, this is true, this is false because of this, because of that. This is just an answer. What the important thing is, what is your basis of truth? Okay, so if your company decides that the truth lies within the company, within documents that are shared into a specific intranet or in a specific folder on disk in the company, then you can use that as the basis. Okay, so even the tools that you find online that they check the content and they say it's true, it's false, you should question them and to say, okay, you say it's true with respect to which reference database. Okay, so this is something that you don't necessarily see online. When Grok says it's true, it's false, on which basis? I mean, how did you find that out? So the approach that we took with all that site is to make the configuration of the search engine open source, and actually you build your own truth reference database. Okay, if you trust the scientific data, you build that from there. If you trust the government, you build that from there. And everybody can, like, at least refer to that data when saying it's true or false.
Right. I would say, like, Perplexity was probably the first one to start mentioning these sources. I would not come between you and the coffee. I know we have half an hour break right after this, but I would take like one last question. Beside from the fake news, have you also explored hate speech, problematic content flagging on your experiments?
Yeah, the architecture is the same, actually. So yeah, like we have seen there, the entailment checker can say, okay, true or false, contradictory or entailed. But yeah, you can apply this to other domains. And the last example that we shown, it's not necessarily telling it's true or false. It's just like telling it's about that domain or about that domain. So it works exactly the same, yes.
Cool. That sounds good. And thank you for answering all the questions. We would now have half an hour coffee break. And please come back energized. And we talk more tech. So let's thank Lucian and Giovanna for a great talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.